One of the country's best comedians, with hit shows such as Defending the Caveman, he now returns with his show Love Factually, which chronicles importance of seeing the funny side of everything. Set to take place at Montecasino from the 1st of February to the 12th of March. In Love Factually, it will investigate everything from text breakups, online attractions, and the gift of having children and the supposed burden of family and more. So to tell us more about the production, we have the man himself in studio with us, Committie. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. You really do take that stance of being the relationship guru.
Well, but I say very clearly in the show, and quite close up front to the top of the show, saying, as much as I think I know, of course, nothing really, you can know all the principles and still be completely confuzzled by the dynamics between men and women. And having played Defending the Caveman for 8.5 years, 900 odd shows, I thought it might be time to re-look at it.
Yeah.
In 2016 we have very different attitudes towards relationships. We go into interactions with the opposite sex in a very different way. Now with Tinder and online kind of interactions, and that's no longer a stigma. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, if you said you were online and...
Oh my gosh, you would hide that away.
Well, you would, wouldn't you?
No, you would make up some profound story.
Exactly.
Anything not to admit that you found each other online.
Now, if you talk to people in the audience, people are getting married that they met on Tinder 2 or 3 years ago. So that's quite an exciting time, but it has its own rules and complications. But there are also kind of differing attitudes towards... Well, here's an interesting fact. For example, we live longer.
Yes.
In modern life, people are now living to 80, 90, 100 years old. So I'm looking at you. You're probably 22, 23.
24.
24.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Thank you for...
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah. But if you were now to choose a life partner and you're going to be with each other for 75 or 80 years, can you imagine looking at my face for 80 years? Look at me. Can you imagine that?
No.
Well, exactly.
Well,
you've got to make a decision a lot more seriously. So I think
and it's about swiping left and swiping right.
Exactly.
I've never seen Tinder. I don't know. I mean, look, I'm married, so I don't know about these things. And I'm one of those happily married people that actually doesn't have a secret phone with Tinder on. So swiping left and swiping right, I don't get it.
Well, it's not. Listen, the more important question around Tinder, I think, is that what you're effectively doing is you're taking everything about yourself and condensing it into 1 or 2 images and 1 or 2 lines. Can you imagine how difficult that must be?
Wow.
We used to have on dating apps, for example, where they'd say, what is your favorite movie? You'd have to list a whole lot of favorite things so that they could create a profile for you. Well, if you had to ask yourself, what is your favorite movie of all time? That's a simple question and is so difficult.
Yes.
Imagine you said, Mamma Mia. Imagine cutting out 8.7 billion people on the planet because you said Mamma Mia.
Exactly. You're limiting your choices.
Yourself, so you've got to make it. So that's the difficulty. You're distilling everything into 1 or 2 images. And one of the things we do, which is too great hilarious effect in this show, is to look at some of those profiles on Tinder to see how people are putting themselves out there.
Yes.
Guys, for example, try and make themselves, they've got a cat in one hand and they're zip lining in another. Plus they've got their gym clothes and they're trying to be, so they're trying to cover all their bases.
Yes, exactly. Just in case.
Just in case.
They don't want to leave anybody out.
Exactly.
That is so funny. You also, I see in this, we talk about text breakups and text relationships. And, like you say, you'll never know. The other day, my husband and I were having a tiff. So we're sitting there, and obviously we're a part of a lot of the same WhatsApp groups.
Of course.
So now we've just been shouting at one another about something completely odd. And then he gets onto this WhatsApp group, and I know what a bad mood he's in. And he just comes across as so funny and wonderful and happy. And I'm like,
how's that happening?
And I'm looking at him on the couch and I'm like, whoa, where?
Well, exactly.
So there you go.
The faces we have to put out there on all the realities we create for ourselves.
Yes.
And of course, just a simple thing like WhatsApp, you can now see when your partner has read your message.
Oh, yes.
Because the ticks have turned blue. Blue's the new red, if you know what I mean. And that in itself can be quite frustrating. So the show is a real modern look at relationships. But it does also say that ultimately, no matter how new the kind of media might be, ultimately our dynamics are the same, and we still operate in different operating systems, and we need to understand and acknowledge that in your partner, because only through that kind of difference do we find a way to move forward.
Yeah, when we look at something like Defending the Caveman, which we unfortunately keep going back to because it was such a hit.
Correct.
And it was such a great success. And
Right.
I remember going years ago, and I'm not going to put a year to it because I am only 24 years old. So,
Exactly.
to say that I was sitting in the show at 8 is wrong. But it was such a huge success, and to come back and do something on top of that.
Yes.
Have you found it difficult, or is it's
because
just
I
evolving?
think it has evolved, and we take what we learned from Caveman, as it were, and we keep expounding on that. So it's not like we're deleting what we've learned before. I think that's the point about relationships, is that we evolve with all the information that we have. I found we did the show last year for the first time. I did Cape Town, Joburg, and in a couple of smaller spots across the country, and the response was extraordinary.
Yeah.
So much so that we're now back into a second season. So that's encouraging.
That's amazing.
And we start again tomorrow night at Montecasino, and it's going to be interesting to see again, even in this new run, as I evolve, because I have lovely moments where I get to engage with the audience. We have everyone there. We had a couple on a blind date recently.
Yes.
The first time out, and they've come to a dating show. Man, that's brave.
That's very
but
brave.
Equally,
and in the front row.
And in the front row.
I mean, come on.
But equally, last season, a couple who'd been married for 63 years. And so I engage with them. What is the secret? Tell the couple who've just started dating. And those kind of funny little stories, and everyone's got an interesting story, makes for, I think, a show that keeps evolving and staying alive.
Which is so nice, because as a comedian, and it's turned into a brilliant profession in South Africa.
Right.
And you can make a living, and you
Absolutely.
can actually do really nice for yourself, make a name, and
Well,
be
I think
sustainable.
so. And you're hopefully bringing some joy into people's
That's
lives,
it.
and you're going out on stage, you're having people laugh. But also there's that wonderful sense of community. You have couples who are sitting there, and they're laughing, but they suddenly realize, hang on, there are 400 other people laughing at the same thing.
So we're not
we're not alone. We're not alone. We can
all
do
going
this.
through that. So there are other couples who watch their husband having
Correct.
jokes on a WhatsApp group, and you guys have just barely got out of the kitchen alive
We're
together.
all the same, as much as we want to be different.
It is. It's actually very, very funny. But the nice thing, and maybe I'm wrong, but you kind of stay away from the political side of things.
I do. Everything you do is politically coloured, if you will, because that's the nature of the modern world. We see that now everywhere we go. So it's there, but it's so far underneath, and it just colours things in, if you will. But I try and focus on the everyday, the kind of stuff that people recognise and acknowledge. In this show particularly, we called it Love Factually because I watch a lot of romantic comedies.
Yes.
I think most of us do. It's our escape into the world. I'm a movie buff anyway, so I love movies. But one of the things when you watch the rom-com, unlike other movies which takes us out of our world, the rom-com pretends that this is what our world is like.
Yeah.
Except then we go home and we have that fight, and your husband's on WhatsApp. You never see that in a romantic comedy.
No, you don't.
So Love Factually is an attempt to kind of debunk the rom-com and say, it's fun, it's great, we must love it, but real life is a little different.
It's a lot different.
You don't end up at the end of the movie at the airport racing across a crowded room trying to get your loved one to stay in the country. First of all, you couldn't now with all the bans at the airport.
Well, exactly. And in fact, I think airports bring out the worst in everybody. I think if there's one place where you fight,
that's right.
where your marriage is on the
stress
line,
and you're always
in
late,
an
there's
airport.
punctuality issues.
Yeah. One of you is tardy, the other one is efficient, and you've got to kind of find the balance between
Work
that.
your way through all of that.
Yeah, it's an adventure. It really, really is a wonderful adventure. You've got to love it. But so the show is running, and I mean, you've just come back from Cape Town because you were doing a show in Cape Town.
I did a stand-up, a year-end stand-up show. I kind of do a year-in review, so that was Laughing Matters, which will come to Joburg this year. But this is now back to Love Factually. It's time to relook at relationships. We're at Montecasino for 6 weeks, Wednesdays to Saturdays, and I think it's the perfect date show.
Yeah.
And in this month of love, why wouldn't you bring your partner, come and sit down? And believe me, it's from anyone who's just started dating.
Yes.
And even if you're single and you bring a friend, now that's also an interesting. You get the friend zone.
Yes.
And then you've got a couple of people. Sometimes they think they're on a date until you start talking to the couples, and the one thinks they're on a date, and the other thinks this is just a friendly night out.
Yes.
That makes for some fun.
That always makes for fun.
Oh.
I mean, I had a friend like that who I was apparently dating, and I didn't even know it. I
Yeah.
didn't know it either. I was
Communication
like, have we been
is
dating
key.
for a year? Seriously? Communication is it's a really good thing. When you say if you're dating from this high, you don't have children. Do you have children?
I don't have children, no.
No, I didn't think so.
No.
Mine
But we
is
talk a little bit about...
She's a little higher than this, and I will not let her go out on a date.
Well, I think that, and fair enough, I think people
Just a
look
little
at the...
higher.
Little higher than that. She's 37, but she's just...
So, your relationship status, where are you?
Well, listen, I'm involved, and I talk about Melissa. I've changed her name to protect the innocent. I think that's only fair.
I think it's a good idea.
But, look, Melissa and I have been together for a number of years, and so there's things you learn. But, of course, you look and you see relationships all around you, from your own parents to your siblings to good friends. And I am that guy who's soaking stuff up all the time and going, oh, that's a good little key conversation to remember, or that look was an interesting bit. So you're constantly evolving the show as well, which is interesting.
That is so lovely. And then just finally, I mean, as I let you go, one of the best best characters is your Johan character.
Johan van der Walt.
Oh, Johan van der Walt is awesome.
And who makes an appearance in the show?
Is he going to?
Yeah, no, he does. He's in a dating video, and he talks a little bit about putting himself out on a dating site and trying to find love in his life. Because for many years, as you know, he's been single by choice. Not his choice, but it is by choice.
I love him. Alan, thank you for coming in and giving us some laughter on this day. Alan Committie, he is going to be at Montecasino. It starts tomorrow. Go and see it. Love Factually. It's from the 1st of Feb until the 12th of March. No excuses. There's a long run. So you must go out there and have a great laugh. We need it in this day and age. Alan Committie, always a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you for coming in.
I'll WhatsApp you later.
Please do. Please do. All right. Let's take a break. We've got more after this. Stay tuned.